It's not working. We're gonna move over. We're gonna sit here. You sit here.
Okay, most of the people here have signed up anyways, just because they were people we
Okay. So this, actually, can you bring that charger, that iPad charger, or you can work on these two.
Did you turn the sound off?
Just the sound off.
The sound is off.
Okay. This one, Joe, like the most I can do is like cover my head with like everything else. That's okay, right?
It's okay. Okay, bring the mic.
This. I'm so nervous. Okay, take a deep breath, Jess. Fuck. Okay. Can we move down a little bit?
Well, we need to be,
because I wanna move this like the camera a little over. This is good.
I think there's a problem. Do you have two books?
2 books?
Because we're different heights.
What why?
No, because right now we can barely see you.
No, I just want us to move like that way a little bit. So maybe we can still cover.
We can do that.
Like this. Okay, this is like perfect. And then
Okay.
what do you want with the books? Do you want to sit on them?
Yes.
These are my good books. Okay, should we start? I'm gonna laugh.
Okay.
We should start in like at 59.
Do it like this so that we can still see people and I can read the question.
Hello. I'm gonna wait.
You're gonna have to be the one that moderates most of the Yeti Nano. Oh wait, don't select speaker as a same as
Yeah, same system. Wait, what do I moderate?
You're gonna have to moderate the Q&A because I can't see it from here.
That's okay. Or do you want me to pull it up on this? It's like here.
Oh, half.
Half. I should have brought my monitor. The monitor is too big here though. This is good. Can you see? Can you see this?
I can see this. Yeah, I have good eyesight.
Like second backup sort of thing. Should we broadcast?
Take a deep breath, Jess.
We can do this.
Like this.
It's been a year.
Okay.
Okay. Let us broadcast.
Okay. Can you
Scroll up to here? Almost end. Hi guys. All right. Hello.
We're just gonna wait a few minutes.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for joining us.
Give me a second.
Hi, Miss Dhillon. We see you now. We're gonna just give us 1 second, and then we just have some things to change. Okay. Can we disconnect? Okay. All right. Hi, guys. Miss Dhillon is here. Miss Dhillon, we're just gonna give a short introduction before we start the interview with you.
Sorry.
All right. I think we're ready. Let's just give the introduction.
Yeah, sure.
Can everyone hear us fine? Actually, I don't even know if you guys can say anything, but I hope everyone can hear us good. Okay, great. Thank you for letting us know. Thank you.
All right. So we're just gonna get started. Hi, everyone. I'm Jessie.
You're not Jessie.
Sorry.
I'm Jessie.
I hope you're all doing well. Just before we introduce our very first speaker, we just wanted to thank everybody for taking time out of their weekends to come watch us and listen to all of the amazing advice from all of our speakers. This year, we have created Boss Up Summit, which is an online event that brings leaders across North America to come speak to all the youth who are right here. Let's welcome Ms. Manpreet Dhillon, who is our very first speaker of the day. Sorry, it's just gonna take a second. Hello,
Hi,
Ms.
Miss Dhillon.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, of course. We're really honored to have you here with us as our first speaker.
Yeah. Just before we start, how are you today?
I'm doing really good. I'm a little bit tired. It's Saturday, but I'm feeling good. I'm excited to chat with you all. And it's always fun to, I love doing presentations. So it's always fun for me to kind of come do these things.
Yeah, of course. Just so the audience knows, so Miss Dhillon today, she'll be first doing a presentation, and then we'll go on with like a series of Q&As.
Yeah. So before we delve into your presentation, we just wanted to give the audience a brief introduction about you. So Manpreet Dhillon is currently ranked 15th globally on the 2020 Empower Ethnic Minority Future Leaders list. She has over 15 years of experience as an equity, diversity, and inclusion specialist with a unique lens as a leadership coach for women of culturally diverse backgrounds. She is the CEO and founder of Visa and an entrepreneur in residence with Women's Enterprise Center. She is also a twice contributing author to Chicken Soup for the Soul and a contributing author to Forbes, Thrive Global, and Small Business BC. And we know you wanted to present a slideshow, so would you like to just screen share that now?
Yeah, so I just need to be enabled to do that.
Is it not letting you?
No, so if you click on the little arrow right next to it, you should be able to enable me. Otherwise, you might have to do it on the end.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
See if that works now.
Perfect. Awesome. And so I'm always a fan of, if you have questions or if you have comments, I want to hear from you in the chat. I like going with the whole, let's make this interactive as much as possible.
Yeah, of course.
And my biggest thing is, and the thing is, I have backgrounds in helping women of color move into leadership. And if you have questions around leadership, ask those questions now too. We have a great opportunity to connect on that. And I'm hoping that I'm going to share a little bit of my story and how I got to where I got to and some of the lessons I learned along the way. So you're going to see some fun pictures of me as well throughout the journey, just to, I thought it's always kind of fun to hear a person's story and where they got to as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
So so I'm just going to talk a little bit about VEZA, because VEZA exists to create equality for people of culturally diverse backgrounds, color, and making sure that they are paid equally, and that they are also so when we're working with organizations, that the organizations represent the communities they serve. Over the last couple months, with all of the Black Lives Matter movement, it's been really interesting because I've been doing equity, diversity, inclusion work for about 15 years. And it was just really, I was ready to quit in February. And they always say, when you're about to quit something, that's actually when you're really fully stepping into your purpose. So with the last couple of months, VEZA got super busy. And because obviously we saw in the media how important the topic of race is, if we looked at how inequality actually impacts our world, our systems, our communities, and even how we operate on a day-to-day basis. And so VEZA, actually what we do is we work with organizations on that. And so, but everything who I was ever since I was a little kid led me up to this moment. And so that's what the story I'm going to tell is, like, just to give you a lens. I'm like, so all the stories I'm telling are about all the lessons I've learned to get to where I am. So it's such an important piece, because everything that even you're doing right now in your lives, it will impact you later on. So it's always being conscious about how can you set intention, how can you be purposeful with your interactions, and what do you make, what decisions are you making now that will impact you later on. So when we're thinking about, and I just wanted to put this quote out there, we know that there's certain people in this world who are white people, able-bodied, straight, and they can go their entire lives without thinking about masculinity, whiteness, able-bodied, heterosexuality, cisgender. And there's other people in the world who are constantly reminded of why they're different. So when we are so growing up, obviously, I grew up to immigrant parents, and obviously being a woman of color, I grew up in an area of town where we didn't have a lot of um, South Asians there, or people of color there, and so I always right away I look different. And there's a few other things that made me different growing up. So this is where I just wanted to put this quote out there just to remind you that there's people in this world that have it, what we call it, easier, and then there's other people who are constantly having to address why they're different and overcome that in some way as well. And that's the world that I'm trying to change. And that's a responsibility that each of you has to change as well. How can you connect with other people and see who they are as individuals? How can you see other people for what their hearts look like? Instead of always focusing on the differences, how can you find ways that you connect with others on what their similarities are? And that's actually how we're going to create a organization, a communities where we can be inclusive as well. So why we're having this discussion. So this is about you for future part of your career, thinking about this. We know that diverse companies make better decisions 87% of the time. So each of you think about whatever your pathway is and whatever lens you're bringing in. You have a different way of thinking. You have a different way of being. And if you are working in your strengths, you're going to be more productive and innovative. And that happens even with school projects and everything else. And then we also know that a lot of people going into the workforce are thinking about what even universities they're going to or anything else. They're always looking at how does diversity matter for the organization that they're trying to set into. So when we're thinking about this, one of the first things is life is going to always throw you challenges, and it's up to you to decide what you do with them. So I grew up, this was me at 5 years old, and this was me at 6 years old. And the difference between, this doll still scares me, by the way. This doll reminds me of Chucky, so I had to throw it away. That's a whole other story about fears. The difference between this picture and this next picture was that I was diagnosed with autoimmune disease, and I wasn't able to walk. I was told I wasn't going to be able to walk, maybe ever. And only 6,000 Canadians had it. And so within this 1 year, my life completely changed. I wasn't able to run and play. I wasn't able to even walk on my own. I needed help all the time. But over the years, I'm one of the 3% of all Canadians that has overcome this disease, and not on any medications or anything. But it wasn't so. It's so important that you know that like challenges are going to be thrown to you all the time. You just have to have the perseverance and the tenacity to be like, I'm going to overcome it. And whatever your challenge is not who you are. Who you are is who you are in your heart. So you can always overcome it. Pay attention to what you're passionate about. So when I was growing up, this is me in grade 7. I don't have that dress anymore. I don't know why I dressed like I was like 30 years older, but that's a whole nother question as well. But you'll notice that what my pet peeves are eggs, which I still don't understand the reason for that. Racism, discrimination, wars, and sexism, and zoos. So now 30 years later, all the work that I do is about addressing racism, discrimination, wars, and sexism. So I'm always looking at, even when I was in grade 7, I already knew what I was going to do. So a lot of the times, it wasn't because I knew exactly what I was going to do, because my career didn't exist then. The field of diversity and inclusion just came to be about 10 years ago. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew what I was passionate about. So I followed my passion and it created a career out of it, and I created my own company out of it. Do things that make you, I've misspelled it, make you feel inspired. I wanted to do Ayurvedic medicine training, so I went to Nepal with my dad, and I went to go learn how to make medicine. And now that was in February that I went, and I've been learning about Ayurvedic medicine for a variety of reasons, but it was a reason why I was able to get off of bed rest after having a really bad back pain for 7 months. And I was in my bed for 7 months while I was running multiple companies. And Ayurvedic medicine, now I'm actually launching a company that has to do with Ayurvedic medicine. So you never know what you're passionate about. You just got to go do it. You never know what's going to come with it. Do your part in changing the world. So in 2011, me and my friend, I actually don't even know the year, 2011, 2012. Me and one of my close friends, we decided to start a network because we had access to a lot of mayors. We had a lot of access to a lot of like leaders, and we would go to those rooms and very few people of color would be there. And so we would all hang out. So I was like, that needs to change. We need more women who are of diverse backgrounds in these rooms, because that's actually when the conversation changes. They need to be a part of decision making. So I started a networking group with one of my close friends. I'm not a part of it anymore. She's still running it. We had about 1,000 women in the network. It was amazing because first event, 85 women showed up. And that was the first time growing up in a different generation. People thought that South Asian women are always competitive. And we actually proved that wrong. We realized that women love to collaborate. Women love to come in community. And I'm focusing a lot on the women. Men, you're all part of this as well. But women love to create change. Anyone likes to create change. People just want to come together on a common goal, and they want to create change together. So find people that you can do that with and make the change happen. Take a risk, as you never know what the outcome is going to be. So I launched this a digital marketing program for immigrant women, and put all my own money into it. And it was amazing because this woman in here, Manifa, she has an app that's helping to change the world. She was a refugee from Sudan, and we did the digital marketing program, and she was amazing. And she is going to do all these other things, and she has created more impact. But the thing is, like, it didn't make sense for me to create a digital marketing program because it wasn't aligned to business. They always tell you business, like, make sure you stay in your lane and do those things. I am like totally the opposite, multi-passionate. I just do things I'm passionate about and just do them. This immigrant woman, this woman, and the other two were the instructors, and they've gone to do amazing things as well as instructors, Noor and Krista. But Manifa has creating so much change in the world. We also took a group of women entrepreneurs to Croatia. This is us at the Croatia-Spain game. Cost me $20,000 to do this trade mission. But this trade mission was the first time a private company actually led a trade mission to usually what governments do. We did that. I did that on my own. Let me to meet the Governor General at a state dinner with the President of Croatia, Prime Minister of Canada, and the Governor General. And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't take the risk. Learn and grow constantly, challenge yourself. I didn't know how to skate. As you can tell from my legs, I don't actually know how to skate. I'm pretending I know how to skate. I learned how to play hockey in grade 11, and that led me to meeting Haley Wickenheiser. She taught me how to skate. And now one of the skating story, next week we're launching a new company, and it's going to come up again. But the not learning how to skate, but it was like knowing that I didn't know how to skate, but I started playing hockey before I knew. It was just about going in, learning it, and I had so much fun. And it has taught me that you don't have to be good at something, and you can still make a change. You can still do it. And all my sports, like, I suck at sports, but I still go play them, and I had so much fun all the time. We even started a ball hockey tournament, and I will tell you why. That's in memory of my brother, but this was, again, I didn't know how to skate, but I got to start a ball hockey tournament later on. And we helped put 100 kids through sports for a year, which was really cool. I also didn't know how to dance, as you can tell from my dance moves there. But I joined Miss Kamloops just to grow as a person and learn how to talk to mayors and talk to, personal development, Toastmasters. But again, it scared me because I was so shy as a kid, and now I'm public speaking all the time. I never used to actually, I used to be the one in the corner, people used to not even know I was in the room. And now I'm out there doing things all the time because I did things that scared me. And that's the next thing, do things that scare you. I was so scared of horses. This horse and I didn't talk to each other for probably about an hour before we met. And afterwards, I don't have the picture of us becoming best friends, but we totally best friends about it. The first time I went on a horse, I was so scared that the horse got scared and it ran off. So this is where you just got to do things you get scared of, and it's okay. It happens, and you just got to overcome it. And I was scared of heights, went hot air ballooning as well, which was really fun. And it was just I stood in the middle for the first little while because I was so scared of heights. But you got to do things that scare you because the experience itself was amazing. If you want something, make it happen and prepare your position. I wanted to go to Italy in grade 12, and I didn't have the money. So I came up with the contract with my mom and my dad about how I was going to pay them back and how much money I needed. I prepared a whole presentation, argument of all the reasons why, what are the benefits going to be to them, what are the benefits going to be to me. And then I had to prepare a loan plan with my uncle who was going to loan me the money. And then afterwards my parents paid for it because they thought the preparation was great. But this is the thing: if you really want something, prepare for it and just make it happen. Grief will hit us all, and it's what happens out the grief that matters. So this is my brother. He passed away 7 years ago. This is the last picture we took together. One of the biggest things is always take pictures with your loved ones. Me and him really had no pictures together when we were older. But the biggest thing was when he passed away, my life kind of broke apart because he was like my best friend. But it's been so amazing because he's been an angel from the other side. And it's also made me just remember that life is too short to worry about the small things. And so grief and loss is gonna hit all of us at some point. But just remember, you can always overcome it, and there's always light at the end of the tunnel, and they live in your heart, and that's the most important piece. Rewards come when we stand for our purpose. The empowered ethnic minority thing only happened because someone else. So there's a lot of white women do diversity inclusion work, and they're so amazing at what they do. Someone was blasting them on social media. I was like, look, that's not cool. Let's she's amazing at the work that she does. We kind of talk, and I kind of stood up for her. She found out through the grapevine that I stood up for her. That's why you always speak up for people, even when they're not in the room. So she nominated me for the award. So this award means a lot to me because of the fact that she nominated me, and I stood up for what I believed in to help her. And so always stand up for other people. And when you gotta get an opportunity, take it. I was asked to write a story for Chicken Soup for the Soul, and I didn't write it up until it was due on December 31st. I wrote it on December 28th. I was asked in August. And sometimes we just take our time. We're like, we're not going to do it. Oh no, it doesn't matter. Who am I to write this story? Why does my voice matter? Well, that story was one of 7,000 that was chosen for this book in 100 stories. And that story, just last month, someone from Saudi Arabia messaged me that they had read the story, and it helped them because they had just lost their wife. And they had read my story, and it helped them get through that. So you never know who you're going to impact. Always use your voice. Always take the opportunity. When someone asks you, say yes. Be the yes person. That movie, Yes Man, is the best movie to watch because it just changes your life on like how you approach life. Overcome your mind by taking action. So this is me doing a 10K last year. I was told by the doctors I can't do it. I've had 7 concussions. I live with brain injury, and I'm high functioning brain injury. I was told that I wasn't allowed to do this 10K. I was like, screw that. I don't condone not listening to doctor's orders, but in this case, she knew I wasn't going to listen, so she was aware this wasn't going to happen. I did the 10K. Felt brutal afterwards. It took me so long. I actually ranked like in the middle of it, which was really surprising. But it was so hard. But I just did it because it was something important to me. And so yeah, so it was like so just again, even if it's hard, just do it. Volunteer. This is me. I think volunteer experiences are one of the best things you can do at any point in your career. I started volunteering when I was 14 years old, and my entire career, everything I've learned, the people I've met, the experiences I've had is because of volunteerism. This is a group of women in Nepal that we went to volunteer with. We got to spend a week with these women. They're women farmers, and these women, none of us spoke the same language. They spoke Nepali, we spoke English. Through smiles and translation, we were able to connect with one another, and it was really positive experience. And now because of that, also like that's where all the Ayurvedic stuff and the work with the women farmers is coming up. And this, I also volunteered to take the Vancouver Police Pipeline to India. One of the best trips that I did. I got to spend time with members of the police department, but then also we got to see how important culture is and how important it is to understand each other's culture. So volunteer whenever you can. Set intentions. I had the intention of going to South by Southwest. It's the largest media entertainment conference. I got to host an event there, and these women that we got to meet there, this is half of the group. All these women they wanted to step into their leadership. So we're all doing the power poses there. And it was really amazing because it was the fact that when you set your intention, it will happen. I got to speak on NASA because I set an intention in 2007 that I want to speak there. I got to speak there, and it was an amazing experience because You just never know how it's going to happen, but just be clear with your intention. I also got published in a UN Women report, and that was something my dream for 25 years. Sometimes it takes a long time to achieve your dreams, but it's important that you can. And so now I would like to pose to you, what are 1 to 3 actions you will take? So just take a moment and just whatever you're inspired right now, what are 1 to 3 actions you're going to take in your life that, or you intentions you want to set for yourself, and just take a moment, either share them with us in the chat, and then also we're open up for questions as well. And then if you want to connect, these are the ways that you can connect as well.
That's awesome.
I think we have a few questions in the Q&A session. Would you like to just sort of read them out, or would you like to do it?
Sure, I can do that. Let me get this presentation. Okay, I'll do the chat one first here. What would you suggest that a teenager can do if he or she wants to make a change in the world but doesn't know where to start? The best thing that you can do is, so whatever change you want to make, find someone in that area who's making the change and just contact them. Never be scared to contact someone, because people like to hear from people. They might not respond back right away, but you just never know who is going to respond. So that's actually always the first way, trying to network, trying to meet people in the place that in that field that are making the change, and go and talk to them. Interview at least 5 people, and to kind of hone in your idea. Because when you're inspired to do something, go and talk to people, and read books about it. Just dive into it, research it. I know nothing about farming. So all I've been doing is reading about regenerative agriculture. And now all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that's a business idea. Or that, like, and it's not about the business idea because this is going to be not for profit, but that's the change we can make. I had to go and immerse myself. I talked to people constantly about it, and that's what makes a difference as well. Okay, what is something you wish you could have known before going to university? So I have a different career path. So I didn't know what I thought I was going to go into kinesiology. I wanted to be a athletic therapist for Team Canada women's team and the hockey team. And I wish I had known that the marks matter because it gets you into the programs, but really it's the overall experience of university that's the most important. And even in high school, that's the most important piece. How are you getting engaged with the community? Who are the people that you're like talking to on a daily basis? When you're the average of the 5 people you spend time with, so think about who the average of the 5 people are that you're spending time with, right? So if I had known that before, if I had learned that earlier, I was lucky. Like I hung out with a lot of keeners who were very motivated and really engaged. And but if I consciously, I would have like maybe paid a little more attention to my grades, because it would have gotten me it would have made it easier to get into the programs I wanted to. But I also, if I had more compassion that, you know what, first year, I might not know what I'm going to do, but everything I do is going to make a difference as part of my career. So I took kines. A lot of the work I do is about connecting the body with the mind, and I do that with my diversity work. So all the anatomy classes do that. I was in electronic engineering. I understand systems in a different way, and that works in how I look at organizations. So whatever you decide to do is going to impact you different all. And just remember, don't put that much pressure on yourself. What would you say that doing things you're scared of, what shaped you? Would you say that doing things you're scared of is what shaped you as a leader? I think everyone's a leader, first of all. I think you can lead just by showing up. Leadership to me is when you're showing up and you're showing up in your power. So doing things I'm scared of, yes, it did help me do that, because it motivates other people to do things as well that they're scared of as well. What if 3 of your friends are starting a business and one of them is not doing any of the work and is expecting to get paid? What should we do? I would have an honest conversation. It's important that when you're starting a business together, you do need to draft out an agreement of who's going to do what, and how is everyone going to get paid. And actually, like, getting advice from a lawyer is super important when you're starting a business with a friend. What is your definition of success? Do you believe that there is a recipe to be a successful entrepreneur? So I shared the story about my brother passing away because I thought before I met him, I thought success was about all the achievements that I had. And it led me to burnout. It led me to, so, it led me to burnout. It led me to poor relationships with my family members because all I did was talk about work. I still love work a lot. But I forgot that, people is what matters. So success to me now is the moments that I'm just happy, the moments that I can enjoy, the moments that I have quality time with loved ones. And that's actually what the recipe to be a successful entrepreneur. Until I learned that, actually my business wasn't doing that well. When I forgot all about, when I focused too much on the achievements and I forgot about the day to day about people, my business wasn't that great because I wasn't happy in my own life. And when you're happy in your life in all ways, like you're taking care of yourself spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, that's actually what is this recipe for success. And there's a lot of debate about benefits of volunteering in different countries. As a teenager, how can we make sure we're actually making an impact then rather than volunteerism? Great question. So one of the things that volunteerism is great in the sense that there's a safety net to it, right? There is that protection, you're protected. I have volunteered without volunteer organizations where I've gone straight and I've just contacted like an orphanage and been like, I want to come volunteer. How can I do that? But the thing is, like with that caveat, I also had someone else I was going with, so there was like a safety mechanism there. And when you really research their history, really research the organizations that they're working with, and also ask for testimonials of others who've gone through those programs as well. Anything that's that has under the government umbrellas, they're usually making more impact, and they're a little bit safer to go with as well.
I believe that's it for our Q&A questions right now, but people can continue to send questions. We also have quite a few questions that we would like to ask you.
Absolutely.
So we know that our previously Boss Up was actually an event that was extrapolated from our last year's event, which was called Miss Boss Conference, which was targeted more towards empowering young women to pursue their passions. And we know, as you talked about today, that you're someone who is very passionate about women's empowerment, especially women of various cultural backgrounds. So how has your experience as a woman of color affected your path in becoming a leader?
So it's interesting. So the challenges for men and women of color are quite similar. So even, I just want to preface that as well. So even with men of color, they're paid lower than white women. If we need to look at the salary scales, and women of color paid lower than that. So you have white men, Asians are actually paid the highest, which is really interesting. But then you have white men, white women, then people of color come underneath. And then it also depends on what your background is, and that's where the stats go. So the challenges has been, I didn't have role models and I didn't have mentors. And growing up, I grew up also at a time when the only women that I would see that was doing anything other than labor work was, she was in a bank as a teller. No other woman was in leadership that looked like me. And so that's actually why, and so not knowing that was important. I walked into a lot of rooms where my education was questioned, my viewpoints were questioned. I became a senior manager at the age of like 28. And so age was questioned quite a bit in my expertise. And so so the challenges was like, I also had a lot of meetings where they would wait for the men to come to the meeting so that the meeting can start. And so I had to really work on my confidence. And I grew up with not having a lot of confidence. I went to like modeling, like I did modeling school, Miss Kamloops, all for confidence reasons. And so I had to really work on so when you think about imposter syndrome, that comes up for people of color, is actually harder. So when you're overcoming imposter syndrome, and imposter syndrome is when you believe that you don't deserve to be where you are. So when you're overcoming that, it's like, know your strengths. And I had to really know my strengths. And I had to really look at why the achievements that I had were important. And also when I'm in a room and someone's trying to talk over me or is trying to dismiss my viewpoint, I have to insert my voice into that. So your voice really matters as well. So those are some of the challenges I had.
You talked about confidence. So what is sort of your tip about increasing confidence, especially for teenagers who aren't quite sure?
Yeah, confidence is a big one because confidence can, it depends on your environment as well. So it's really going back to like, what is the, so paying attention on what are you telling yourself about yourself? So when we go back to like, when you think about affirmations and we think about intentions, when you're reminding yourself how awesome you are each day, that's actually important. Like it's important to kind of have those messages on in places you can see them all the time, like even on your phone. As a go into your phone each day. When you see something at least 4 times, your brain starts to remember that's who you are. So actually writing positive messages about yourself and seeing it 4 times every day will change your confidence right away. And also think about who's around you that isn't helping your confidence. And sometimes you have to change situations and people around you, and you can't change them, but what you can do is stop listening to them and listen to the messages that you want to give to yourself.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip because I feel like we tend to get consumed by like your environment and whatever is conveyed around you, and that sort of like nurtures a very like toxic sort of environment. But definitely like blocking it out. It sounds like self-intuitive and like easy, but
It's
sometimes
hard.
it's hard. Yeah, it definitely is hard to like stray away from like the group and the majority.
Yeah, but the thing is, people have that challenge with even when they're older, right? Like especially families the hardest as well, because a lot of the times families are the ones that are the most critical, and not meaning to be, but they are the most critical. Um, and some people, we grew up in sometimes in certain families, especially when you're of different culture backgrounds, you grow up in families where being critical is a sign of love, because that's what they were taught. And so when you're trying to like balance out and being like, that doesn't work for me anymore. So it's being kind about it and being like, understand that that's that person's journey. That doesn't mean that has to be yours as well.
In sort of a similar vein, we had actually read a news article about you, and it talked about how you sort of sabotaged your own success, as you put it. Could you explain a little bit about what this means and what we as teenagers could do to stop it from happening?
Yeah. So sabotaging success is interesting because sometimes we will get in our own way. Like sometimes it goes back to I've done it multiple times, like where things are going really really well, and either um, I do something will cause a problem with someone else, right? Cause an issue with someone else, or I will we waste a lot of money or whatever else that might be. So it comes up in different ways. And I remember even when I was in high school, what I used to do was because my grades were getting really good and people around me, their grades weren't that great. So I would stop studying so that my grades wouldn't be better than theirs. And so it was really hard because I was like, I always wanted to fit in. So one of the most important pieces are, and I even, when I went to BCIT, when I went to university, that was the thing that happened too, where everyone else, I partied a lot, but I would also, no one knew that I would come home and study until 3 or 4 in the morning, and then I would go work my 2 jobs. And so no one else knew that because I was like, I didn't want them to know. And when we came to graduation, I had the highest marks. And so it's an important, like even when you think about teenager, yeah, it's important to fit in, and it's important to feel like you're connected, but you can still be successful and fit in. People are gonna like you more when you are more success, like when you are confident and when you are doing what's important to you. If they don't like you, they don't deserve to be your friend. And then if you would cut those type of people out and also be the best friend for yourself, that's actually why we started the organization, Be Your Own Best Friend. Think about how you treat your own best friend. Do that to yourself. Would you ever tell your best friend to like not to go study when they have an exam the next day? No, right? So do that for yourself as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. I feel like the both of us could definitely put that to use. Yeah.
I still put that to use all the time.
We actually have another Q&A question that says, on the note of families, what would you recommend to a teen or a university student in their 20s tell their parents they want to pursue a career different than the one that their parents had planned out for them?
That's a great one because so I had to do that with my family because I went into kines, and my mom didn't even know how to see kinesiology before, and so I was always teaching her what that is. And people would ask her, they're like, what is that? Why is she doing that?" And then my entire career has actually been non-traditional, so I'm constantly having to like educate on that. So when you're trying to educate someone on the path that they've chosen, especially parents, and it's not the same path, find them examples of people who are successful, because why parents want that for you is because they just want you to be successful. They want to know that you're gonna be taken care of and you're able to take care of yourself. Parents just want to make sure that you're gonna have the financial success. You're gonna be able to do all the things that you want to do, or do all the things that they weren't able to do. So show them examples of people who are successful when you're telling them that you're going to choose a different career path, and kind of show them, like, do the research and say, this is how I can be successful, and show them a plan. If they know that you got this, they're more convinced. And even if they have resistance, that's where you have to really be like, I appreciate that you love me, but this is something I have to do for myself. And continue to be like, I would love your support. This is how I would like your support. And asking them that question as well.
On a slightly different note, you had talked about your brother, and we know that you contributed to writing Chicken Soup for the Soul, and your submission was about losing your younger brother. So how did you sort of deal with the influx of grief and other emotions when you were still leading an entire team?
So at the time, I wasn't leading the same team. At the time, what I was doing, I was working on a project where we're launching international prize in Punjab in India and Pakistan. I dealt with it horribly, to be honest. I watched a lot of Netflix for the first little while because I needed to numb. I was lucky that I had a lot of friends who were around who would just check on me every day because I had gotten depressed. And I was lucky because of my work, I got to go travel for 2.5 months. And so I just left. One of the things that, looking back, I wish that I'd gone to counseling sooner than I did. I wish I'd given myself permission to be happy. Because one thing was, like, there was a time about 6 months later, I was really happy. And I called my parents and I was like, look, because I was in Palm Springs or something. I had traveled to like 5 countries at that point. I just went on an adventure. And my team was still there. Like, I still had to like check in with my team. So I still checked in with them and I was honest with them. Like, I'm having a bad day. Right. And I'm like, this is what I need. I'm surprised I kept my role as a lead of that project as well, because I was in a really bad place. If I had been more honest, would probably been better. But that's where it's important that when you're feeling a lot of emotions, be honest with the people around you. It's hard to be, but be honest with them. And I remember when I was in Palm Springs, though, I called my mom. I'm like, I feel happy, but I feel like it's wrong to be happy. And it was one of those things I had to remember that my brother would have loved. That's all he ever wanted was me to be happy, because he thought I was more fun when I'm like not talking about work and stuff like that. And when we go out, that's why we used to spend so much time together, because he's like, I'm really quirky and I do really random things in my life. And he just would always loved it when I was like laughing and smiling. And I always had to remember the person that we lose, they just want us to be happy as well. And we can give ourselves permission to be that. But also be honest with everyone else as well, if you're having a bad day too.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know right now, especially like this year, has been like very difficult for everyone on like different levels, different degrees, of course. But I think it's like a great lesson to learn and to hear about that other people have like gone through the same things.
Totally. And grief doesn't happen when you're just losing a loved one, right? Grief happens when you, like this year, we've had a collective grief in the world, because people, you didn't get to do the things that you wanted to do. You had the loss of like people who didn't get to go do their graduation. That's a grief as well. People who didn't get to spend time with their friends. Like, there's so many levels of grief in this world. And just remembering it's okay to feel that. It's okay to feel the different emotions of grief. And there's 5 different levels, and it's okay to go through all of them as well.
Yeah, definitely. As a leader, I feel like a lot of the times there's this misconception that leaders have to like be strong for their team, and shouldn't show like no emotion at all. But I feel like that could be very unhealthy and athlete to.
Yeah. And just on that note, like I have a team of 9 now, and we have, I have brain injury, as I mentioned. So some days are bad. Like some days I can't think as clearly, or I need more breaks. So I have to be honest with my team, like, hey, I need a break today, or I need your help with this. I have to ask for help constantly, and it's okay to do that. And people are so helpful. People are so amazing. Like we grew our company from 2 people to 9 in just in the last like 6 months, and everyone on the team has been like jumping in and whenever anyone needs. And that's the thing. Remember that people always want to help you, and it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah, I agree. Just like Jesse, I think it's important to realize that your emotions are sort of valid. And you were just talking about your relationship with your employees, and that actually reminded me about another news article where you said that leadership can amplify your voice, but employees are just as critical in creating an inclusive culture. So, how would you, as a leader and as the CEO of your own company, describe the relationship between like the boss and the employee?
So for me, we're all equal, because everyone has something to like. Yeah, fine. I sent like the paychecks come from, I'm the final say on a lot of the things because it is my company. But the thing is, I hired them because they're experts. I hired them because they're leaders in their own area. So we just hired a few recent graduates, and they are the ones who are kind of putting forward their strategy. They're putting forward the project plans because they think differently than I do. And we have to remember that we need to surround ourselves with people who think differently than we do, because that's how we are success. If we just surround ourselves, and so for me, they're all leaders in different ways in their own areas. And technically, yeah, I have the lead title or whatever, but the thing is, I have to look for them when it's their expertise. And that's what a true leader does, is actually looking at how do you bring other people up, and how do you bring other people along, and how do you bring other people to be, how do you enable them to be leaders? And that's the best thing that you can do.
I want to follow up on that question because for a lot of like the more conventional and traditional like approaches to running a business, they don't really follow that mindset where like everyone is equal. And like, could you give us like a bit of an insight on how, if you have that like mindset of everybody is equal, like how does that change actually like what the company itself produces? Like how you guys, like, is it more efficient?
So it totally is more efficient because people, again, if we focus on people's strengths, people want to feel good about the work that they do. People want to feel good about contributing, right? And people want to feel good about making a difference. At the end of the day, everyone wants to make a difference in somehow in some ways life. You just have to give them the opportunity to do that. And so when you're like when we treat ourselves like as a boss and being like, oh, I'm separate. So I've done it both ways. So I was before, when I was younger, I would be the manager that I'd be so busy I wouldn't have time to talk to people. And I did that for about 2 months, and I realized that they weren't engaged and they wouldn't even do the work because they didn't care about me. They didn't care about the work. And when I shifted my mentality, I was like, look, like you're really good at this. How do we can you tell me what to do? Can you teach me what to do? All of a sudden, even things that they didn't want to do, they were doing because they're like, oh, she cares about me. Because people just want to feel like they're cared about, they're accepted, that they belong. And they will do amazing work because when they feel that you genuinely want them to be there. When they're just a number, no one, it's not healthy for anyone.
Yeah, I think compassion just goes a long way. Just not even just in, I think, traditional leadership roles like being a CEO, but also just in everyday life. Because I think you were talking about it, that you got the award for Empower because you were compassionate enough to go and help others and stand up for others.
Yeah, completely. Like compassion is such an important piece because when we remember that everyone's a human, regardless of all the labels we play, like at the end of the day, we all have hearts. We all have, the same body structure. We have the same anatomy, so that we're actually really similar. It's just experiences that make us different. And so when we can go back to that and seeing people as similar to us, that's when actually life will change.
Another question I feel like very prevalent to like leaders nowadays. There's like this question about work-life balance, whether it's like familial life, personal life, self-care. Do you have like your approach to this? Your approach to this like somewhat balanced?
Yeah, so balance doesn't exist. That's my approach. There's going to be times when work is going to be more prevalent. Sometimes in personal life is going to be more prevalent. It's ebbs and flows depending on what the season is, right? Sometimes, like I know in any of my business, like the way that I operate my life in my businesses, there's certain times of year that are going to be busier and certain times of year that are not. So I do most of my socialization in September and December. Summer, December, and in January. And that's actually when I spend most of my time socializing in personal life. Whereas the rest of the year, I'm really focused on work. But then also I make sure that I take off Friday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday. I don't work because I need creative time. And so I will work longer hours on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? And then sometimes I'll work until 9:30 at night. But then also, I also am very conscious if I need a mental health day, I'm going to take it. So it's really about just being in tune with yourself and what you need. So because I don't work on weekends, I get a lot of time just to socialize with friends and family. But then also I get a lot of time to just do the things that are important to me. And so it's really about what's going to work for you, but schedule everything into your calendar. That's the most important thing. Schedule everything into your calendar. Like my calendar looks really full because everything's scheduled in there. And that includes, I still take extra courses, even because I'm always constantly learning because we have to. And so everything's scheduled in there, like the study time, the eating time, the self-care time, workouts, everything's in my schedule already. And I just follow that. And that's what helps to keep somewhat of a balance.
Yeah, I think teenagers like it's it's important to like foster that like scheduling habit like from probably like when you're a teenager in high school. It's yeah.
I hated schedules. I didn't do them in high school, and I wish that I had. I think I would have been more successful if I had. But then that's why I don't schedule anything on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So those are always unscheduled days for me. And even if it's like social plans, I'm always kind of like iffy. Like I'll just be like, I'll let I will schedule like some social plans, but only one thing a day. Because I don't like schedules still to this day. I like to be like a total gypsy.
I think it's actually quite important because I mean, we as teenagers, I don't know about Jesse, but yeah, the scheduling thing doesn't happen as often as I probably should. But I think it's sort of a learning curve where you slowly become more and more aware of it as more and more people tell you. And then hopefully one day it sort of becomes more of a habit than what it currently is.
Everyone struggles with it. Even like any of my coaching clients are still like, why do we have to do a schedule? This is the worst thing ever. But it's that's how you just balance it out with not having that time when you don't have the schedule as well.
We actually sort of have a question going back to what you were talking about before, how you couldn't find any mentors, especially not one as a woman of color. So were you ever able to find a mentor?
Yeah, so I have multiple mentors now. And so sometimes you have mentoring conversations with people. So those might be like a 15-minute conversation, right? And in those 15 minutes, you get different things. My longer term mentors are mostly men, actually, to be honest. I have a few women, but mostly men, because the men are the ones that they champion me. They're the ones who open the doors. They bring me to like a lot of the government things, and they do a lot of those things. I was able to find those mentors, but I had to ask, right? And I had to actually make the send them an email, make an introduction, and start from there. And even growing up, I think, yeah, I mean, now it's easier to find. There's so many mentoring programs. When I grew up, like I'm 42, so when I grew up, there wasn't a lot of mentoring programs at that time. And but yes, so just ask and so actually early next week, we're actually launching a mentoring organization where we're going to do mentor moments with some of the sports legends and other key people, high level people across the country. And even attending those, you learn so much more, right? And that's the thing, to just always remember that there's different ways to have those mentoring moments as well.
feel like for like a lot of teenagers, I know for myself, like the idea of like finding a mentor or someone to like guide you along the way is like it's sort of like a thought that it's like essential, or like if you don't have one, you're not going to be able to go anywhere. Do you have any take on that, like that mentality that like you need a mentor?
I don't agree with that, because at the end of the day, the mentor's just talking to you about their experience. At the end of the day, it's what you're doing is you're learning from the mentor on what might be easier. And then you have someone to talk about your career with, right? But the thing is, at the end of the day, you yourself is going to know what's best for you. Even now, like my mentors will give me advice, but that doesn't mean I go with them. Like I will consider that advice, but I'm like, oh, how's that going to impact? Or they kind of tell me from their lens. Like one of my mentors just the other day, she told me, she's like, well, why do you always have multiple businesses? You're not going to be successful. And I was like, that's your take, because she's only done one thing ever, and that doesn't work for me, right? Because I thrive when I have multiple. So it's always is so at the end of the day, like you can only, like, you're going to know the best thing for yourself. Never give your power to someone like a mentor, but the mentor is just there to teach you along the way. And if you have questions and if you want someone to reflect back certain things to you. So it's important to go have those conversations, and especially outside of friends or with parents. It's important to have someone else that you can talk things through. Like my first mentors was one of my high school teachers. I remember the conversation I still had with him, because I was a B student always. I never was an A student. And he actually said to me, he's like, you don't try hard enough. And he goes, because of that, you're not going to get what you want. And if you tried just a little bit harder, because I was in honors and stuff like that, but I still didn't try because I was so focused on everything else, which I don't always recommend. I would recommend a balance. But he was one of my first conversations. So you just never know when they're going to show up. And that was a mentoring conversation, because his advice is something I still think about all the time.
Yeah, of course. Joanna needs to go get something. I just have a follow-up, right? Like, just if I got what you were saying correctly, there is no like golden rule to like what you hear from others. Like, you don't have to absorb everything. It's sort of like an accumulation of the advice and tips you get along the way, but you sort of take what you need, right?
Yeah. And see what resonates with you.
Yeah,
right? What feels right, and do that.
Yeah, of course.
Just another sort of more broad question. When you were in grade 7, you had already cared about a lot of the issues that you're now trying to change right now. Was there a particular person who impacted you or inspired you to create it?
No, so I didn't realize until 2 years ago that I decided this in grade 7. So it was like I was unpacking my boxes. We had just moved, and I found my old yearbook, and I was like, I never knew I wrote this. That's so interesting that I decided this. At the time, I had a teacher. So I remember my teacher at that time was really, it made us challenge ourselves. It made us think about things differently. And I grew up he would constantly make us think about social issues. So then I started to think about, well, what change do I want to make in the world? And that was like what inspired me to do that. And I tried to get jobs. Like I've been trying so hard to like work. I worked in a UBC for 11 years. And I just realized, for me, entrepreneurism was something that my mom did. She was really passionate about it. She had a couple of businesses. And so when I look back and I'm like, who inspired me it was my mom, my grandma. My grandma used to run for the women in the village. She used to do things. They used to run like a kitty to help women if they were in domestic abuse and give them money and stuff. And so I think there's not one person inspired me. There's multiple. Like my grandfather on my mom's side was very much in politics, which is something that I dabble in as well. He's very much about creating change and helping other people. So there's multiple things that got me passionate about it, but it was about the fact that I allowed myself to learn about new topics, and that was what helped me understand what I'm passionate about as well.
Yeah, we definitely saw that in like the slideshow with your like multiple interests and everything. So I think that's like a big takeaway for everybody. Yeah. We're approaching like the end. If anybody has any more questions, feel free to ask. Ms. Dhillon, if you don't mind, can we in the chat box type out your contact info if everyone?
Please go for it.
Yeah. Pull up the information. We can put Instagram. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all good. I can just type it for you if you want.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, that would
Thank
be
you
great.
so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah. If any of you guys have any questions or want to contact Ms. Dhillon further, please just save her contact information, and then you can always reach out to her.
Yeah.
I'll just put my Instagram. That'll be easier here.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm sure everyone has learned a lot today. I certainly did myself. Thank you for being our first interviewee and dealing with. There might be like a few technical issues here and there.
Yeah.
No, it's all good. Thanks for having me. It was really fun, and I'm kudos to both of you. You guys did an amazing job for it, organizing and like your research and everything. Way more than most conferences I go to. So,
Thank you.
did an amazing
Yeah.
job.
It was actually awesome hearing from you who like we sort of have similar backgrounds and aspirations, visions. So thank you so much for sharing all of those with us today.
No, of course. There was one last question that came in here. When starting a small business, what do you think are some good things to advertise on? When you're starting a small business, one of the biggest things is get your champion through friends and family. But they're sometimes they're not the ones who are going to support you. So so even when you're thinking about advertising, get other people to talk about your business. Have them experience what your product and service is, and getting them to post about it, provide testimonials is what's going to help grow your business. And it also, the advertising, it really depends on the type of business you have. Mm-hmm. And that actually changes the platform as well. Yeah. Because Instagram's great for products. In service bases, LinkedIn, so there's just different things that you want to focus on. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for having me.
No,
thank you so much. We're very honored to have you here speak with us. Again, if any of you guys want to reach out to Ms. Dhillon, please just contact her through Instagram, or if you don't save the information, you can always also go to our website and there's information on that as well. All right. Thank you, Ms. Dhillon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a great conference. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Hi, Mr. Cohen. We see you there now. We're just wrapping up this one, so we're going to make you the panelist. But if you don't mind, we're
just going to do a little brief introduction.
Yeah.
So let's invite our next speaker of the day.